Well, hi guys, Mark here again. This is episode 54 of Reexamining the End Times through the lens of my 2024 book, The Threshold of Exile. We've gone through the first three parts of the book, and we're now in the book of Revelation, and trying to navigate through some ideas here that are quite different than what you're probably typically used to. We're dealing with seeing biblical eschatology, New Testament eschatology through a different set of eyes, where I'm suggesting to you that much of what we think is going to happen in the end of the world actually happened in the first century, and it revolved a lot around the rise of Rome, the destruction of Jerusalem, and the arrival of the kingdom of God in Christ. And so we have been going through Revelation week by week in this section of the book. And we're now in Revelation 17 and 18, really, and we're addressing this issue where John sees the vision of the harlot who's riding upon the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. And we've tried to give you some insight as to why I believe, and many believe, that Jerusalem is the harlot of Revelation. It's not Rome. It's not the papacy. And by the way, can we finally put that to bed? This whole idea of trying to make Rome or the Catholic Church or any out to be the whore of Babylon, or the city of Rome being the whore of Babylon, really does not make sense to the context of Revelation. And we went through the harlot and looked at many of the reasons why this just simply has to be Jerusalem. And there's much more than I covered in the last session, but even just reviewing that very briefly, this whole chapters now is really like the book of Revelation itself is. It's a complex mixture of history and theology. Revelation 17 and 18 gives us descriptions of both the beast and the harlot. Revelation 18 is really a dirge or a lament over the fall of Jerusalem. And we see this harlot and beast kind of in tandem because they're in a relationship. In 17:16, the beast that we're going to be looking at is going to turn on her and destroy her. So this is the obvious situation between Rome and Jerusalem, where the beast who is Rome, which we'll try to look at today, but the beast who is Rome is going to turn and destroy Jerusalem, and that's the context of the Roman-Jewish War, Jewish-Roman War, which occurred in 66 to 70 A.D. And in this, we actually get an interesting look in 17:8, a glimpse of the destroyer. And we're going to see some dual imagery here of that Titus is actually the human destroyer of Jerusalem, and he comes up out of Egypt to join his father Vespasian. Titus is a general at the time, and it's very interesting the symbolism there, because he, being the destroyer, the one who led the forces against Jerusalem, is also seen as coming up out of the abyss in Revelation 9:11, and that's also mentioned again in Revelation 11:7. But we'll get more into that to explain it a little further. But this harlot designation is we said it was first century Jerusalem, and it's been given over to idolatry, materialism, sensuality, and merchandising in God's house. And so this interesting mystery Babylon that we see, she's really become not only what was once the city of God, but now the temple of God in Jerusalem became, just like the pagan temples, she became a house of merchandise. In the ancient world, the temples of pagan gods were places of merchandise. They were trade hubs where much business was transacted, and Israel had become that, and that this blending of the being the house, the Father's house, and this house of merchandise just did not mix. They're not meant to mix. And Jesus even overturned the money changers, and he says, "You made my Father's house a den of thieves, or a house of merchandise." And so this is one indication here in these passages in 17 and 18 is this city is laden with all this merchandise and pearls and business transactions and all kinds of things that we see in Revelation 17 and 18. The prophets, Isaiah and Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, they all describe Jerusalem as a harlot. Isaiah 1, how the faithful city has become a harlot. Hosea 4 12, the spirit of harlotry has led them astray, and they have played the harlot, departing from their God. Also in Hosea 5:4, their deeds will not allow them to return to their God, for a spirit of harlotry is within them. And we know that, we mentioned that Tyre and Nineveh were the only other cities in the Old Testament referred to as harlots. And uniquely, though, they had each been in covenant with God at one time. And we won't go into the historical details of that now, but they turned from God, and so their breaking of their covenant with God, both Jonah converted the Ninevites, and Tyre had participated in the building of the temple working with David and Solomon. And so these two powers were given the designation of harlot. The only other possibility, the Roman Empire is mentioned, but the Roman Empire was never mentioned anywhere in the Bible as being in covenant with God. And so that was necessary, to have this covenantal relationship for them to be designated like a harlot. And this harlot, we said in 17:4, in Revelation 17:4, that the blood, she's carrying this cup with the blood of the saints and the martyrs. In her, that blood is found in chapter 18 and verse 24, the blood of the saints, the righteous on the land. And this is directly linked to what Jesus told them in Matthew 23. He says that you will be held accountable for you. I'll send you prophets, and I'll send you wise men, and I'll send you apostles, and you will kill and destroy and persecute. And so this blood that Jesus told them was going to be on them is seen in this great harlot in Revelation 7. Then we see her as Babylon, and we tried to convey the idea that this woman returned to Babylon in 586 BC after they were taken to Babylon in exile by Nebuchadnezzar, and this return was back to where their ancestral roots, where Abraham was called out of Ur of the Chaldees, or Ur of the Chaldeans. And this post-exile, this post-586 BC exile, we learn even again from the Talmud that Babylon became a home away from home. And it even states the one who lives in Babylon is as though he lives in the land of Israel. And so there's this connection, including the Aramaic language, which was adopted by the Jews who really didn't have any background in the temple life in Jerusalem as these two generations passed by. And actually very few Jews, in terms of number, actually returned under King Cyrus of Persia when he allowed the Jews to go back. I think they said about 50,000 or so returned out of, I'm sure was several million that were in Jerusalem or in the land at that time. So you have an identity, Abraham's Chaldean roots. You have location, the physical return there to exile, a choice to remain for many of them. They were influenced by Babylon, the luxury, the merchandising of the city, the temple, just like Babylon's, great temples and the adornments of she was a center of trade and merchandise in the ancient world. And then you also even have this Talmudic interpretations that come out of the Babylonian Talmud. And actually the Babylonian Talmud, which was the most authoritative book in Judaism outside the scriptures themselves, a lot of these oral traditions found their origin in Babylon. And so we see this whole, this whole imagery of this woman in this chapter of 17th chapter of Revelation. Everything about her drips of Jerusalem, who had fallen from God and now had taken and adapted much of Babylon, and she was adorned as a harlot. And Jeremiah, like in Jeremiah, it says you have of the harlot on your forehead. This woman has, Babylon, mother of harlots, on her forehead, and she should have been a priestly people. And that's what a parody about, Aaron wore a parody saying "Holy to the Lord," a tiara on his forehead. So this is quite an interesting turn of events as Israel or in Jerusalem are seen now as this harlot, and she's riding on the beast. Okay, she's in league. She's collaborating with the beast, and John is wondering at this vision, and maybe he should have recognized it, but he didn't. And the angel says, "Why do you wonder?" In Revelation 17:7. And he says, I'll tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, immediately, this 7 heads and 10 horns is a repetition of earlier visions. Revelation 13, we see a similar vision. Revelation 12, we saw a similar vision. But all this is informed by Daniel 7. And I'm going to take you through a little bit about this beast and what we can learn about it, and see if we can kind of see how this Roman beast is characterized through Revelation and how it is informed by the book of Daniel. Now, I'm going to share some ideas with you, okay? This is not easy stuff to get your head around. It can be very complex. You have crowns and beasts and horns and heads and, I mean, just all kinds of stuff, and they seem to shift over the course of different visions. Sometimes the crowns are on the horns, sometimes they're on the heads, sometimes they're not at all, and it can be very confusing. But what I think, and I think that first of all, we know that this is all informed by Daniel 7. In Daniel 7, we learn about 4 empires are presented to us in Daniel 7. And the first 3 are Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, then we have Cyrus of Persia, then we have Alexander of Greece, whose empire was parceled out to 4 generals after his early untimely death. He had no heir, so the power went to his 4 of his generals. And so we see in this, though, a 4th beast, which is extremely fearful, extremely scary, if you will. Daniel notes that it's a very fearful-looking beast. And then he goes on to describe it. And what Daniel is giving us in this description, where he sees 10 horns, nothing said about heads, just 10 horns. And in the middle of these 10 horns, there's one small one that kind of crops up in the middle of it. And I think that at that time, it's merely a broad overview of the infrastructure of imperial Rome and the fate of the beasts before it. And so the dragon, who is not really known at that time to be part of Rome, he's the most fierce, okay? He's the most fierce of all these 4. And he has 10 horns. There's no crowns because they haven't received power yet. Remember, Daniel's looking down the annals of time and 500 years ahead of time. And so all he sees is these 10 horns, and they have... they're part of this great beast, okay? And out of these 10, again, one arises as an 11th, and he moves 3 out of the way. Now, we're going to see, it doesn't tell us a whole lot. Daniel doesn't know who this is. We don't, just looking at that with nothing else, we don't know who this is. But he does tell us that at that time, all these are going to be destroyed, and the kingdom of God is going to be established. So that's our first clue of the kingdom being established in the 1st century. Now, when we go to Daniel or to Revelation 12, we begin to see something a little bit more clearly, that there's a dragon waiting to devour the man-child, okay, which was Jesus, we said, this new community, the firstborn of a new community. And the characterization here, or the emphasis here, is that the political infrastructure that the dragon embodies comes into sharper focus as being Rome. Now, what we see is 7 crowned heads and 10 horns. Those 10 horns is a clue that's connecting us back to Daniel 7, okay? Just like Daniel saw a beast with 10 horns, and we see in Revelation 12 a beast, a fearful beast with 10 horns, which turns out to be the dragon in Revelation 12. And so there's a connection here between this fearsome thing that Daniel is seeing, and now he appears and John sees him as the dragon in the 12th chapter, okay? But there's another little thing that he sees. He's got 7 crowned heads, which is very interesting because that puts us into the middle of the political infrastructure of the Roman Empire. Julius, Augustus, Tiberius, Gaius, who was Caligula. Then there was Claudius. Then we had Nero, Vespasian. And so we actually see a sequence of emperors, crowned heads, if you will, this sequence of emperors, and so that now that the dragon is going to be seen as embodying the Roman Empire. Then as it moves to chapter 13, Revelation 13, we see a sea beast Now, the land beast has nothing to do with land beast is the Sadducean party. It's the elite of Israel who are in league collaborating with Rome because of their own personal financial vested interest, their own seats of power. But we're really not dealing with them now. If you want to understand that better, you have to go back and look at where we discuss this in our study of Revelation 13. But again, the dragon now in Revelation 13 is embodied in Rome. We see the full political infrastructure in Revelation 13. And Revelation 13:2 tells us that this dragon or this beast has the power of Rome. It has the power of Babylon, has the power of Persia, has the power of Greece. And so we have these other heads assimilated into this beast. And I explained to you at that time in our study of Revelation 13 that in the ancient world, in Mesopotamian world, that it was common when a nation had conquered that it would assume or assimilate the gods of the conquered power. And so what we see in this is that this dragon has now assimilated, this Roman beast, all the power of the dragon and all these earlier principalities. And remember, what Daniel saw in chapter 7 is not just people. He's seeing principalities, okay? Chapter 8, he talks about the prince of Persia and the prince of... He's talking about the spiritual principalities, the powers, the unseen powers behind these empires. And so now we see this is all being concentrated in Revelation 13. This is all being concentrated in the Roman Empire at the time, okay? Then we come to Revelation 17, and we see this harlot riding upon the beast. And the characterization here is the relationship between Jerusalem and Rome. And interestingly enough, there are no crowns at all here. No heads with any kind of crowns or anything. It's just the heads and the horns. And I think that may have something to do with the fact that Jerusalem is riding this beast, and so there's a sense of control. There's a sense with which she has been controlling him and using this beast to do her bidding, to do her persecution, and that she has been a source, just the way she's described, having all this luxury and all this trade. Well, all that brings prosperity to the Roman Empire, and so there's a sense in which she's riding on him because Rome is being used, or she's using Rome to persecute the church, and then also that the empire is benefiting. Okay, she's riding him, and he's being benefiting from her luxury and her trade and all that she brings to the empire. Okay, and so. But ultimately, the absence of any crowns in this particular vision leads me to believe that as we follow this through 18 and 19, this beast is going to turn on her and destroy her, but that the beast itself, the power, not the Rome, the empire itself, because that Rome didn't fall for another several hundred years after these events, but the beast itself, the power of the beast behind this activity will be destroyed. That's one mistake that many people say, well, this couldn't be the first century because Rome wasn't destroyed in the first century. We're not talking about Rome, the human power or the human empire. We're talking about a spiritual power, the power of the beast, the power of the dragon. All this is going to be destroyed. Their power is going to be stripped as Jesus comes to bring and establish the kingdom.